Okay, this is going to be the first in a series of many, probably a number of videos where I'm talking about my brother and my brother's life and so on, because there's a lot to tell, and my brother Sam, and so I just wanted to go through a few things that things about him. Um, he um, um, he would name, first of all, it's like he would have, he had different cars, as a young adult, and the other thing is like one of the things he did is he named his cars, so he named one of his cars. Remember, it's like the last car he had was my actually it belonged to my parents. It was a '64, I think it was a '64 Dodge station wagon. It was white. So it was this huge thing. He got it used from my parents, and he named it Moby. It's in Moby Dick. And I remember for some reason he had tires on top of it. Like I guess he had problems with flat tires and stuff. So I guess he gathered a couple extra tires, and he used to just leave them on top of the car and stuff. So, and then he also had a Carmen Ghia. I don't know what year it was, but it was called Leroy, and I don't know why it was called Leroy, but that's that's what he called it. So like I said, he named his cars, and it was a light blue. It was a neat little car, really neat car. So, um, because let's see, one time he helped me with my science project. My brother was all about science. It's like he was, he lived and breathed science. So he when I was in junior high school, I had to do my science project. So he actually helped me with my science project, and we went to Point Furman, the tide pools in Point Furman, and we gathered samples and so on. And somewhere we've got a picture, and it's probably in a box somewhere. I haven't seen it in ages. Where it actually shows me. He took a picture of me because he was also into photography too. He took a picture of me with like before we went down into the tide pool area, of me holding a couple of buckets, and getting ready to do my science project. And I think I did very well with that science project too. So, and um, it's like Sam was, he was called Sammy as a kid, a little kid, and then he as he got older, he wanted to be called Sam, so and I was calling him Sam. Um, he was pretty much everybody's favorite, like my mother's favorites. It's like even though you're supposed to play favorites, it's like my mother's favorite, my mother's favorite kid, and my grandmother, that was her favorite. And also um, he was named after my our step grandfather, who was really like our grandfather. His name was Samuel Light, and he was named. My mother's thought so much of his her stepdad, that she named him Samuel after Samuel Light, after him. Um, let's see. And let's see. Let's see. Got okay. We went to a Blue Oyster Cult Nazareth concert together. He would get concert tickets. It's like the last. He was going through a divorce. Probably around late '73. So like after that, we started going to concerts together and hanging out together. We started hanging out together. So he and I remember distinctly us going to go and see Blue Oyster. We went and saw Blue Oyster Cult, and Nazareth was the opening act for Blue Oyster Cult. And what was interesting back then is like a lot of the concerts were in smaller venues. So it's almost like you couldn't really touch it, but it was like in an auditorium, a good size. It was a good size auditorium, but it was an auditorium. It maybe had probably not more than 1,000 seats, if that. And you got to see these big name bands and so on. And but the interesting thing I remember about that is that we did like Blue Oyster Cult, but it's like Nazareth for some reason really blew us away. We just loved Nazareth. It's like we just thought they were fantastic. We had never heard of them before, and then after that concert, I think we both got their records, and a record of theirs. It's like I think they were just coming up to, and maybe they hadn't even released their first album yet, but it's like, we were really impressed with them. And of course, we enjoyed Blue Oyster Cult too. Um, let's see. it's like on one of his birthdays, I got him a reel to reel tape Chicago because we both loved rock and roll, all types of rock and roll. Um, when reel to reel was around and he had a reel to reel machine, I got him a Chicago reel to reel tape for his. I think it was, I don't know, it was his birthday or anniversary, but you know, it was one of those. It was like because he got married, he was married. Um, uh, it's like one of the things about him is he was really big into photography. There were certain things he was obsessed with. You know, like there was photography. He had a lot of cameras and all the lenses and everything. And he was also very majorly into fish, which is going to be at least one more video all about him and fish. But he's very into science, photography, and so on. And I remember going, you know, when we were hanging out and stuff together. It's like we went to uh, a one of his speeches at a fish club. You know, fish clubs were, you know, they're few and far between. I think now it's not the hobby it used to be. Tropical fish, and I actually wore a Kodak. I wish I still had it. It was like a Kodak. Uh, and had a duck, I think, with a camera or something. It was a blouse with a duck with a camera, Kodak color blouse on, and I just distinctly remember that, and I don't know why I remember it. This is probably like early 1974 or something. So, and I wish I had the blouse, but it's sadly probably long gone. So, and I'm going to continue talking to about my brother, and there's going to be a number of videos about them because there's so much to say about him.